Smile, though your heart is breaking. Smile, something, something, something. So I went and checked out Smile 2 last night. I wasn't looking forward to this film because, to be honest, I didn't rate the first one all that much. I felt like it was just something of an It Follows rip-off. Had its moments, but a lot of them were unintentionally funny, and that could have just been the company I was keeping whilst watching it, but whatever. Suffice to say, I wasn't looking forward to seeing this, and I felt ill as well. I've been ill pretty recently. You might still be able to hear some of that in my nasals. I sat down to watch this and was really surprised by how much I actually enjoyed it and how much it sucked me in for most of its running time. So for those who don't know, and I don't know why you would be watching the second film in a series of films if you don't, but for those who don't, this is a film that follows on, obviously, from the first one, about a demonic entity that essentially infects people for 7 days, kind of terrorizes them for 7 days before killing them, and it kills them in front of someone else. And when that someone else witnesses that killing, it passes on to them. So, yeah. Bit like It Follows. Now, because of the success of the first film, director Parker Finn has a much bigger budget to play with here, and I think that's pretty evident. It's on show. You can see it on screen. He's painting on a much bigger canvas. We do get to be in just rooms quite a lot, but those rooms seem to be much better decorated, let's say. The production design is much bigger, is much fancier, much more expensive. The setup, the story as well, invites more people in, so to speak. We're following this young girl, Naomi Scott, who is a pop star. She was very big. She was like on the cusp of worldwide fame, and something happened, a tragedy happened that kind of took her out of action for a year or so. And now she's trying to get back in the game, or at least she's being pushed back into the game, it seems. How much of her heart is actually in it is debatable. And that's really what the film is all about. That's what it's exploring, is this notion of the fame monster, of how once you attain it, it's not so pretty. You've got everybody who wants a piece of you. You've got people telling you need to be here, you need to be there, you need to do this, you need to do that. All these pressures start pulling you in so many different directions, and I think the film does an excellent job of really capturing that feeling, that isolation. Even when there's many people around you, you still feel isolated. And there's a lot of films that have dealt with that theme, with that idea. But I feel like Parker Finn, the director, and particularly Naomi Scott, pull me in to that really well. I think however they manage to capture that, they do a really great job of it. I feel for this girl, whatever faults she might have, I feel for her, and I'm kind of rooting for her to stand up for herself, to tell everyone to just F off and quit the scene, quite frankly, and go and live a different life. I think Scott's performance in particular is awards worthy. I know a lot of people might say, "Oh, that's hyperbole, don't talk crap." It's like this kind of film doesn't get those kind of awards. You look at something like Hereditary. Toni Collette should have been nominated for Oscars for that film. She wasn't. We knew she wasn't going to be, because films like that do not tend to get nominated for awards, particularly acting awards. But yeah, this isn't a perfect film. It's not going to make my top 10 of the year list or anything. But if there's anything that I would single out, it would be Scott's performance. I do think it is awards worthy. Another clue into how well I think Finn has directed this film, what a good job he's done on it, is that there are certain things that, as they happened in the film, genuinely shocked me and I didn't see coming, even though I'd seen them in the trailer and rolled my eyes. So there are certain moments in horror films that we've seen so many times before where I know exactly when it's going to happen. I know that, all right, because of the way it's framed, because the person's on that side of the screen and there's all this dead space on this side of the screen, I know a car is going to come in and slam into him, run him over at this particular moment. There's a bit like that in the trailer where it's like, okay, cool, whatever, we've seen it so many times before. Yet when that moment happens in the film, I genuinely jumped because I completely forgot. And the reason I forgot is because I was so tied in to the character's experience, what was going on with a particular character at that given moment. I become invested. I was with them. I was rooting for them. I was running alongside them, and then all of a sudden, bang! They got struck, and I was like, "How did that get me? How did that moment make me jump and shock me when I saw it in the trailer and rolled my eyes because it looked like the typical horror movie moment?" And like I say, I think that's down to the direction. I think that's down to the way Finn has involved us in the immediacy of the characters, of what they're going through. I also think there's a lot of moments in this film that kind of remind me of Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, given the concept of the visions that are conjured up by this demonic entity, the fact that it makes you see things that aren't really there, a nightmare, if you will, I could very much see this franchise taking the reins from the likes of Nightmare on Elm Street in regards of where it can go, the places it could take you. There's one particular sequence right near the end of the film involving some practical effects that felt very Nightmare on Elm Street to me, to be honest. Like I say, though, this isn't going to make my top 10 of the year or anything like that. It's not a perfect film. It is a vast improvement on the original, on the first one. So, I did want to give it props for that. But it does have some issues. Like I say, it's not perfect. I think that we spend an awful lot of time in the first two acts with this woman, seeing her slowly being driven crazy. And that does get a little bit repetitive after a while. I'm kind of waiting for a bit of hope to come in. Like, okay, we get it. This thing's driving her mad. But where are you going to go with it? Is she going to be given a way out? Is she going to be given some help of some kind? And that kind of comes at one stage in the film where from that point on, I'm like, oh, okay, now we're going somewhere. Now we get a fight on our hands. And when that comes in, I'm like, I like that, but it could have come a bit sooner. I feel like there's a lot of Shawshank Before the Redemption in that regard. But this being a modern horror film, it also suffers from what I would say is a very predictable ending. Now, I don't go into films trying to predict endings. It's just not something that I contemplate. I don't sit there and think, I wonder how this film will end. But because my friend Cody Leach, I saw a short that he did where he said, there's a very obvious ending with this. And because he said that, I went, oh, is there? There's a very obvious ending. So then I started thinking about it. I was like, what would the obvious ending for this film be? And I thought, I reckon it'd be this. And I had an idea in my head. And then when I watched the film, yes, it is. So if you're inclined to think, what might the ending of this film be? I think you'll probably know where it's going to head. As I say, though, despite those negatives, I do feel like this was quite a thrilling film. There was a pretty good character study of a particular kind of person with a particular kind of lifestyle that made me reflect on the idea of fame and whether or not it would actually be something I want. And by the time I get 2/3 of the way through this film, I'm like, actually, you know what? I'm good. I don't need fame. It's not something that appeals to me after watching something like this. And that's not because of, the notion that a demonic force might be after me, but just the lecherous people that kind of are brought into your life as a result of that. So in that regard, the film did make me think. It did make me feel things and think about certain aspects of life. So yeah, a great step up from the first one. And if there's a third one on the way, which I imagine there will be, then colour me a lot more excited for it than I was for this going in. But yeah, what about you? Have you seen Smile 2? How do you think it compares to the first film? Leave your comments down below. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, cracking.